Just want to make sure it's functioning.
There it goes.
All right, sweet.
Do you want to post the link to the stream in the thing? That might not be a bad idea either.
When we put it up to YouTube, we'll like put all the links in the description or whatever. All right, Matt, fix your video or audio or whatever, but I'm starting the tutorial.
I think he was AFK.
See, I just had to hit allow. That's what the thing is.
That would do it. Make sure you're wearing headphones so you don't echo yourself.
Do you know Brianna Burton?
Yeah.
She said she made cookies.
Oh, all right. So
Mute my mic.
probably today we're gonna go over a quick summary of just how to use the Roll20 system and how to approach 5e and D&D in general, because I figure some of the people who are playing this or who are watching this won't actually know, even though I think you guys have like at least a basic understanding.
Yep.
Anyway, so on Roll20, it's essentially simulating a tabletop environment. It doesn't really do a whole lot of stuff for you. There isn't like a lot of math or whatever, but it's very good at just putting out simple situations and letting you interact with them. So the first thing I'm going to tell you how to use is the chat bar on the right. Now, I see that you've already figured out that you can just type in whatever you want to talk and hit send. That's pretty normal. However, you can also hit the as button to change from whatever profile name you have to some character that has been assigned to you. Now, currently everyone's assigned to everyone because not everyone is checked in yet. But, for example, I can use Dylan's character, Aid, to say hello. Yeah. So there's the as... The way you access that is the as bar below the chat box.
Yeah, I see it now. Okay.
Yeah. Now that's not really important. We probably won't be using that much because this is very audible. Yes, you can.
Say as other people?
You can right now,
But
but like that won't generally be the case when it actually starts.
Yeah.
I couldn't assign roles to people who haven't logged in yet. So speaking of which, if you're looking at this, check into the campaign so I could set things up for you.
Right, where's the check-in again?
You're here.
Oh, that's it?
Pretty much. If you have an account and you've been here, then you're checked in.
Oh, okay, I thought you were talking to us, not whoever is watching us in the Aether.
Yeah. Anyway, so the big command that you need to actually know is how to roll dice for this, because this system keeps people accountable, makes it so people can't just say that they crit on whatever they want. Seems like he figured it out already. It does say it in the little like tutorial thing that'll pop up on the side, but generally the way you do it is /roll, then the number of dice you're rolling, the letter D, and then the greater than.
Oh yeah, if you know what the DC is, you can put it in and it'll automatically tell you if you got it right or not.
Gotcha. All right, well that's interesting. Sorry, the number of dice you're rolling, D, the number of sides the dice has. So for example, if you're rolling a 20-sided die, it's 1d20. And then any mathematical modifier that you're looking for. For example, 1d20 plus 6.
Just so you guys know.
Yeah, if you don't have the D in it, it ends up just putting a number. So rolling d20 rolls a 20-sided die, but roll 20 just puts 20.
Yep. Just letting you guys know.
Also, any characters that you have control over, you can click and drag. So here, I will move over to a situation.
Yeah.
Alright, so here's a pretty simple picture of just like a dwarf and a dragon. Everyone will be able to put in some sort of portrait for their character. I'll get one if you don't have one yourself. And currently, these can only be controlled by me. I can move them around.
Are we
But-
doing portraits, or are we going to be doing like token figurine guys?
Probably portraits, just because I don't want to put the impetus on everyone to find a token that can be differentiated from every other kind of token.
Fair enough.
Especially because there's going to be some weird enemies in this. No, anyway, as the Dungeon Master, I can assign this to be movable by certain players. So, for example, I'm going to give the power to Stream Overlord Tom to move the dwarf. So, Tom, move the dwarf.
Yay!
Woo! Alright. One of the other things that you can do is change properties of things you control. So, for example, I'm going to set the dwarf's health to 100 and turn on the bar so everybody can see it. Can everybody see that bar?
Yeah, that's the health.
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, that could be the dwarf's health. Generally, we just list if you click on something, it will bring up the 3 circles above it. I will give everyone else control of the dragon so they can take a look. But for the stream, we'll be looking at the dwarf. All players. There we go. So when you click on an object you control, it'll bring up the 3 little bubbles above it. These are just things that can keep track of resources or other numbers. You could use it for whatever you want, but generally we use the green to keep track of health. Now you can change that by just clicking in the bubble and writing in a new value, or you can click the little gear that appears in the lower left, and that will open up all kinds of options for your token. For example, putting on a name, if it has an aura, that type of thing. Yeah, and you can also put little status symbols on it, as someone is doing to the dragon. But those aren't very important. For the most part, I'll be the one putting status symbols on, just so people can keep track of things.
Basically, we won't be doing status symbols really for the most part, unless we're probably like
unless they decide they want to. It's relatively harmless. Anyway, so that's most of what you need to do character-wise. If you want a really in-depth explanation, there's a tutorial that pops up when you log into Roll20. You can watch it, and it will cover pretty much everything that you can do in this system. The other notable thing that you guys need to know about is the journal. So if you look at the top of the chat bar, there's these 5 symbols across the top. The one in the middle that kind of or maybe there's only 4. Yeah, there's 5.
There's 5.
Okay.
The middle is the music.
Okay, well, there's one that looks like a newspaper, which is called the journal. I don't know which tab that is for you, but if Tommy could hover over it.
Yeah.
We can save our character sheets here. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
If you click on a character, in this case, they're under your name, but you can change it to be your character's name. You can save your character sheet there, and you could also save any properties or anything else about it. I will also be using it to keep track of those characters and to help you keep track of any like NPCs you've met or other things that you pretty much any time you can check the journal to see if there's something you've forgotten.
We can't
no, you guys cannot make journal posts because it would get really cluttered.
Make the journal bigger, but that's good.
Okay. Anyway, that pretty much covers what you need to know about Roll20. It's a pretty simple system.
Yeah.
The next thing we're going to go about is 5th edition characters. The way Dungeons & Dragons is played, in general, is that you come across a hazard or situation, something that you need to overcome. You roll some dice, and add some skills to it. And as the Dungeon Master, I get back to you as to what the result of your actions were. So, for example, let's say this dwarf here wants to attack the dragon.
That sounds like a terrible idea for the dwarf.
Well, maybe he's a very strong dwarf, or it's a very weak dragon. But generally, you're right. Welcome, Austin. This is some simple stuff, but you'll catch up. So the way you do that is by being near the dragon. We're not really going to worry about range just yet. And then you say, I would like to attack it. I say, okay. roll an attack for me. A basic attack is a 20-sided die because most conflicts are decided with a 20-sided die. So you would type in /roll space 1d20 plus whatever your attack modifier is on your page. We'll get back to that in a bit. But yeah, so for example, if it was a 3, Aid there just tested it out to show us that he rolled a 13, it was a 3. Now, if that's high enough, the total of 16 is high enough, I'll say, okay, you hit it. Otherwise, you don't. Essentially, this is just the way we do conflict resolution. Now, if everyone watching this could bring up a copy of the 5th edition character sheet, just the first page that I posted in the group. I'll wait for a minute while everybody does that.
Don't want to put it on stream?
Sure. Actually, no, that'll take up too much of the space. I'll let them do it on their own.
Okay.
Was the dragon making puns? I didn't notice. Terrible. Alright, anyway. So, I'm going to assume that everybody has their character sheet in front of them. Is that not the case?
Give me a sec. Okay.
Okay, cool. So, if you want to make a real character, like by the rules of the game, you are welcome to. And I will put a link to the Player's Handbook guide where you can walk through the entire character creation process. However, what I'm doing today is teaching you how to make like a shorthand for a character. Pretty much make something that you can use for this. Isn't technically legal, but it'll give you all the moving parts you need. Okay, so the first thing you want to decide about is what your character's race or class is. A race is something like an elf, a dwarf, human, gnome, tiefling, dragon. Anyway, it usually doesn't have that big of an impact, but later it will affect your stats a little bit. Your class is what your player does. They are a paladin, a warrior, a wizard, a ropemancer, or whatever we ended up calling you, a ballerina. So that is how they fight, what kind of abilities they might have. Once you've figured out those two, which is just pretty much names and concepts, it doesn't really matter too much about them because this is a custom character. You're going to want to figure out what kind of distribution you want your stats to be. So now I'm going to describe the 6 core statistics, and you guys just need to pick what order you want those stats in. I'll be giving you the numbers to put in for the first, second, whatever, but pretty much you want to find out which one do you think is going to be your highest stat, which one's going to be your second highest, and so forth. So there are 3 physical stats and 3 mental stats. The 3 physical stats are strength, which is brute force, the ability to move things around, how hard you hit people, pretty much. Dexterity, which is agility, movement, that type of thing, that it's how able you are to get around and be quick. And constitution, which essentially means you're tough. How high your constitution is like determines how high your health is and how resistant you are to things like poison.
Makes me think you're doing something.
Dan, I don't know if you meant to unmute yourself, but you currently are.
Oh, okay.
Then there's the 3 mental stats. There's intelligence, which is like knowledge. It's how knowledgeable you are about things like magic, nature. Pretty much, if you are a learned person, you have a pretty high intelligence.
Are you using the rolls to do that, Nick, or are we doing the point by?
I'm getting to that. Right now I'm just explaining what the 6 stats are.
Yeah, sorry.
Wisdom which is essentially deeper kind of knowledge. It's not so much what you know, but how you've learned to approach things. It's like street smarts or like knowledge learned over the course of a life. And finally, charisma, which is force of personality. And it depends on who you are. And Tom, is that your dog?
Someone's dog.
Whatever. Don't worry about it.
It is not a dog. You hear nothing.
It's not a dog. There are no dogs. Dogs are a myth. Anyway.
Like the Loch Ness Monster in North Dakota?
Yes. Exactly that. So charisma is often not used, but it is big on interactions with people and is often used for certain types of spellcasters. So now take a moment to figure out the order of the 6 stats that you want. Pretty much pick one to be your highest stat, and then your second highest, third highest, etc. Up through your full 6. These should somewhat relate to your class. So, for example, a ballerina should have a very high dexterity, while a knight or some other big tanky dude should have a high constitution, and a barbarian would have a high strength. So, pause the video and work that out.
I should probably think.
All right, great. So, for your highest stat, now normally the process that we're going to do now is something called an array, but I'm going to be using an improved array from what they normally give you, just to make the numbers higher and make the campaign a little more interesting.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I already made one with the normal
So
array.
it's like quality 0.5.
Pretty much.
It's better.
So for whatever your highest stat is, put in a 17.
Sweet. That's so much better than the regular one.
That's what I had when I already spent my bonuses on that, so okay.
Yep. For your second highest stat, put in a 15.
Oh, do I want intelligence?
For your third highest stat, put in a 14. For your fourth highest stat, put in a 12. And then a 10. And then a 9. So, for those who need that repeated, it was 17, 15, 14, 12, 10, 9.
I've lost some lag out.
It's alright, he'll catch up. Thanks. So, write those out. Now, if you'll notice, there's a little bubble at the bottom of each of the boxes that have your stats in them. That bubble is for your modifier. Now, what a modifier is essentially what you're adding to rolls, because you don't want to add a number like 17 every time, because it would make the die roll itself not really matter that much.
I don't know. I kind of like having stats so high I can add 17.
There. Anyway, so the way you get your modifier is taking your stat, subtracting 10, and then dividing it by 2 rounded down.
Or if you make it here, it just tells you what your modifier is.
True, but I'm assuming that some people are doing this on paper, mostly because they're fake classes, so it won't necessarily be supported that well here.
It's actually huge, the fact that I know how to do it now. I used to always have to look it up.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing we're going to decide about your character is what your hit dice are. Now, a hit die is essentially how much health you're going to end up having per level. It's very important to your character because of... Well, you'll see. Anyway, so the frailest of the frail characters have a 6-sided die, and that is essentially a glass baby.
Ugh. I'm shivering, Nick.
The normal casters have like a D8, or like so do rogues and such, because they're not particularly durable, but not like literally made of glass. Your average like real world soldier would probably have a D8 for their hit die. A D10 means that you're tough, like that part of your class involves taking a hit, or that you put yourself in danger.
Who has D10s? Because I thought Paladins only had D8.
Just the barbarians. No, paladins have 10, rangers have 10, fighters have 10, and barbarians have
10.
fucking 12.
Yeah. So 12
Okay.
essentially means that you are a giant tank made of meat.
Stop imagining
It's
that.
not Nick. No.
And essentially, that part of your major function as a character is that you have so much health.
But
I
you
don't
go
think
down.
anyone's going to be needing to do that, but
I usually do, Nick.
it's fine. I'm talking about in this campaign. I'm aware that you usually play a barbarian, but today you're an HR manager, so you're going to have to work it out.
Wait, who's the HR manager?
Matt,
I thought you were a wizard.
he's a magical HR manager.
Obviously.
Anyway, so now that you've figured out your hit die, you need to figure out what level you are. Now, the level will be listed on the schedule, which I will put an updated one here. Wait, is this right? Yeah, this is right. Okay.
You get bonuses in certain stats depending on what race.
What level you are and that kind of thing.
Class you are.
And race. So I'm going to go back to that shortly.
Okay.
So, depending on your level, which it'll say there, you'll get certain bonuses. So, you have a race. Whatever that race is should give you some sort of edge on other people. For the most part, we're going to ignore like the actual like traits about like sleep and languages and that type of thing for non-standard races. But the point is that you're essentially going to get 2 points that get I think a plus 2 and a plus 1. I'm going to double check that. That it gives special stats, essentially. Yeah, okay. You increase one stat by 2 and another by 1, unless you're human, in which case you just increase everything by 1 because they're standard and boring. So pick out those stats and put that onto your original totals. Sorry, I'm just reading your thing. I'll get back to that. Next, for every 4 levels you have, you get 2 points that you can put in various stats. So, like, pretty much 1 point in 2 stats per 4 levels. So, if you're level 4, you'll get 2 points to put into stats. If you're level 8, you'll get 4 points to put into 2 stats, and so forth for every iteration of 4. All right. Now you should have your final stats, and that will give you your final modifiers. Is everyone mostly following along for this?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. If you have any questions that don't get answered in this video, you can contact me via Facebook, phone, or at my email, which I'll put up on the page. So, we're figuring out your health now. Your health, if you remember, you picked a hit die. Now, you are going to roll that for every level you have. Sorry, I'm getting this wrong. For level 1, you just take that number. So if it was a d8, you add 8. Then, for every level past that, you roll that die that number of times. So, for example, if you're level 7, you have 8, and then 6 8-sided die more. You can either do this with physical die or just roll in and be like /roll 68. Bam. So, for example, that would be 28. Plus the 8 you already have is 36. And then you add your Constitution modifier multiplied by your level. So I know that's probably a bit of math out of the blue, but it's not actually that difficult. So for example, if your Constitution modifier was 2 and you're level 7, you'd add 14 more health to that. So this total is your hit point maximum. Let's see what else we have to go through. Alright. Unless your race is like really quick or you're wearing heavy armor, your speed is going to be 6. That means that you can move up to 6 squares in a turn, but we'll work that out. And don't worry about putting proof about the health. Just if you get straight 8s or whatever, I'm going to be able to tell. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to pick up some skills for your character to have. Double resistance equals no damage. No? Why is that coming up? Double
Why'd you
resistance.
ask what you asked, Matt?
Because I was just looking at stuff that my guy has.
Oh,
Have resistance, and you can get resistance. I'm pretty sure double resistance means you take no damage.
it might mean a quarter. I'll have to look into it. That doesn't really come up all that often.
Well, it could if it's fire.
Yeah.
Nice, Dan.
Alright, I lost my... Right, skills. Okay. So, you're going to pick out a number of skills that your character is particularly good at. You'll notice the skills section is there right next to your stats. There are things like acrobatics and animal handling. Alright.
And what skills you could be proficient in are dependent on what your class is.
Yes, but if their class doesn't exist, they could just pick as long as they seem like they make sense.
Yeah, I'm just saying for people
Yeah.
who are watching.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So probably you're going to end up picking out 4 that fit your character particularly well. For example, let's say. All right, yeah, Dan, you're a rope wizard. What 4 skills do you think your person would have? You're still muted.
Just a second.
Oh, no,
Okay.
it's not.
Let me pop them. I have 3 right now. Right? Or do you mean the ones that I showed you before?
No, I mean
Level.
skills, like the things that you roll on die.
Oh. Well, my skills are probably going to be something like perception, which is funny because my wisdom is shit. Where is it? The one that's like persuasion, but you're mean, intimidation. Arcana and insight.
So, for definitions of what these mean, you can either go into the player's handbook that I will have posted, or you can just Google them because they're real words. except for Arcana. That just means the study of magic. The more you have of that, the more you understand magic. So you pick out 4 of those and put a little check mark or something in the little circle next to them. Now, the way you calculate the little dashes next to them is you take the modifier from the appropriate stat. So, for example, acrobatics uses dex. You put that in, and then if you're trained in it, you also add your proficiency bonus. A proficiency bonus, which is a little bubble up on the top that you haven't filled out yet, is the same no matter what your class is, pretty much. And I will tell you how to figure that out. So it is +2 up until level 4, +3 up until level 8, +4 up until level 12, and so on. So pretty much it starts at +2, and then on every 5th level, pretty much, it goes up. So on 5, 9, 13. That doesn't quite work out. Oh, whatever. Yes, every 4 levels you gain starting at level 1. That is a better way to say it. Thank you, Austin. So that should tell you what your proficiency bonus is, and it will be added to the stats to fill out all of your skills. So take a moment to do that now. All right, I'm going to assume that either people who have not done it have either paused the video to do it or are just going to do it in the future, because this is something you can do later. Next, we need to decide what kind of armor you're wearing. I've decided to simplify this somewhat into just light, medium, and heavy armor. So if you were wearing light armor, your armor class is 12 plus your dexterity modifier. If you're wearing medium armor, which is something like pretty much chainmail or like parts of plate, you have a armor class of 14 plus your dex modifier, but that dex modifier can't be higher than 2. So you can have a higher one, but it won't actually make a difference. If you have heavy armor, you will have 18 armor class, no matter what your dexterity is, just 18 flat. But you'll take disadvantage on things like dexterity checks, pretty much.
What was light armor again, Nick? Was that put you?
Light was 12 plus your dex modifier.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
And that's things like cloth or leather.
That is so small.
Yeah.
I'm not used to having such small armor.
For classes that can't wear armor, those don't really exist, but it's just treated as if they were wearing light armor, because presumably they are wearing protective clothing. Like a padded cloak or something. Normally that would be one lower, but I don't feel like working out another tier for lower. Wizards won't have particularly high dexterity anyway, so that should give you your armor class. Your initiative is just the same as your dexterity modifier. Your speed is 6, unless you're something quick like an elf, in which case it's 7, or if you're wearing heavy armor, it's 5. Oh, Austin is typing.
It's
Changed his mind. All right.
30. It's well. Yeah.
Oh, you can measure it in feet, but
Yeah,
since we're
it's
mostly
two
going to
squares.
be using squares for this, just to be able to communicate,
Yeah.
it works better just to put the simple number.
Fair enough.
All right. Last thing we need to pick out, because I'm pretty sure that covers everything but this, is your weapon. If you're a wizard, you'll probably fight with a staff or something that we won't bother statting out. But for the most part, you'll have some form of weapon. We'll come back to spellcasting. So if you do have a weapon, essentially decide how big it is. If it's something like a mace or a morning star, it does a d8 of damage. If it's something like a broadsword, it probably does a d10. A battle axe does a d12. Like a big battle axe does a d12, but that's pretty rare to come by. Your average rapier or something does a d6, and unarmed attacks or particularly ineffective weapons do a d4. So you would write down in attacks and spellcasting the name of your weapon, and then you would decide whether you have a finesse weapon or a brute force weapon. If it's finesse, you put your dexterity modifier plus your proficiency bonus as your attack bonus. Otherwise, it's your strength modifier plus your plus your proficiency bonus. Then you put 1d whatever it was that we just decided based on your weapon, plus, and then your strength if it was a brute force weapon, or your dexterity if it's a finesse weapon. Big difference for wizards is that instead of having attacks, or instead of having weapons like that, they have spells. Now, spellcasting is normally pretty complicated, but again, I'm going to simplify this if you're making up your class. Essentially, you just need to pick a stat that you're going to be using as your spellcasting skill. Then, where can I put this? Any attack you make with a spell, it has the modifier of your proficiency bonus plus your spellcasting stat modifier. So if you cast through force of will, then your casting stat is charisma. If you cast through careful preparation, it's intelligence. If you cast through like a deeper understanding of the world, like something a druid would do, you cast through wisdom. So you pick one of those 3 stats, take your modifier, add your proficiency bonus. That is your spell attack. Sometimes, instead of actually making an attack, you force your opponent to save against the effect, which essentially means that you need to roll a die and see if you can get high enough to get out of the way. The spell save difficulty for your spells is 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus whatever your spellcasting modifier is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
8 plus level plus mod, right?
I mean, I'm using the actual class, so maybe like Dan or someone should answer.
Fair enough.
8 plus level plus mod, right?
What do you want me to do? You
8
want
plus
me to
proficiency
do one of my
bonus plus
things?
mod.
Oh, proficiency.
Like-
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, what'd you say, Dan?
Is that what you wanted?
What?
What?
I heard my name.
Yeah, I was giving
What's the
I was making an explanation of how spell saves and spell attacks worked, and we were trying to figure out if it made sense, and we were asking. Guess not.
I don't think he's paying attention.
That's fine. He's busy and already knows this.
Yeah, just asked me a question. I'm setting
It's
up my
okay.
spell book.
Okay, so last thing that I missed is that saving throws, which I need to do a quick check on because I don't actually remember the creation rules on this. Sorry for the delay. All right. I'm not entirely sure. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so each class has two kinds of saving throws that they're particularly good at. That means that they are better at evading attacks that need certain things. So if you're proficient in a Constitution save, that means that you're somewhat resistant to poison, that you're good at enduring things and keeping your head level. If you're good at a intelligence save, that means you can solve your way out of puzzles very quickly. If you're good at a dexterity save, that means that you can dodge. So each class gets to pick two, and you'll put a little check in those bubbles. It's the section above skills. Now, you fill in those lines next to the bubbles with your stat modifier. So, for example, a strength save will have your strength modifier. Except that the ones that you picked, that you just checked off, you also add your proficiency. All right.
There's a cute puppy.
Yeah, it's adorable.
Is now our mascot.
All right, so that covers pretty much everything on character creation. Does anyone have any more questions regarding character creation?
Not
Austin appears to. All right, sorry, go ahead.
While he's typing, it's not strictly character creation, but I know some of us with what we were donating, we could get the extra wondrous items. Where would we find where to pick from for that?
You will be given them at the start of the campaign.
Okay.
Pretty much when you show up, I'll be like, here's your things.
Okay.
Yeah. And because you might actually get them during the campaign, so I'll be like, oh, you found Anyway. Don't expect them to be particularly useful, but they'll be fun. Austin, the stat bonuses for leveling up again was essentially for every 4 levels you get 2 points to put into stats. Or is that not what you're asking? You're muted. I don't know if you are trying to speak. That was the answer? All right, cool. So I'm just going to move into a little bit of D&D rules real quick, just to go over some stuff that people might not know coming in.
You probably can't make that joke.
I can pass that along later. But for the most part, the way that things flow is in combat, you'll roll initiative, and then there'll be a turn counter. You'll go around, and each one takes some actions. Don't worry too much about what you can do in a turn, because I will keep that maintained and such. The tricky part is there's a few things that are called advantage and disadvantage. Now, what that means is when you have advantage on a roll, you roll it twice and keep the higher number. Now, you'll notice on Roll20, it will do it for you automatically. That you will slash roll 1d20 plus 4, for example. Oh, I missed. 1d20 plus 4. Alright, it will not do it. Alright, don't worry about it.
I usually just do roll d20s and then take it after fact.
Yeah, maybe that was just a character sheet thing. Yeah, it's a character sheet thing. So anyway, you'll roll it twice and keep the higher number. For example, right there, I rolled a 2 and a 3. Apparently, I'm not very lucky. But
Clearly the dice gods love us better, Nick.
yeah, but I would have kept the 3 because it would have been higher up. Disadvantage means the same thing but the opposite. That you roll the die twice but keep the lower number.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Notably, the other thing is health. If you hit 0 hit points, you don't die, but you are dying. You fall down and start bleeding out. You'll make some death saves, and if you pretty much you just roll dice. If you have 11 or higher, you make the save. If you have 10 or below, it's a strike. 3 strikes, you're dead. It's a little more complicated than that, but for the most part, that probably shouldn't be happening too often. But I could be wrong.
Hate us.
People can stabilize you, right, Nick?
Yeah, with a heal check or something like it. But that's corner case. We'll see. Essentially, as we're going through, I'm sure people will be asking like, "Hey, can I help him? Hey, can I do this?" And I trust myself to be able to respond. I just want to answer the really simple questions
Gotcha.
right now.
I know you're
So
a good DM.
yeah.
You'll take care of us when we start.
Dan, for you, maybe because you'll be there so long, but generally, if a character dies, they're just toast unless they can raise the $50 to get the auto raise.
That's only once, right?
It's just once. But if you die twice in like the 3 hours you're supposed to be there, that is extremely impressive. Like you were doing something wrong.
I don't know, Nick. I'm a wizard. It might happen.
I mean, the whole thing about wizards is they don't stand in front of things.
I don't know. It could happen.
Matt, I don't
Really
know if we're the
should.
same thing, but just stand behind me and my giant shield.
Oh, you're gonna be a warrior?
Paladin.
Oh, I mean,
Regardless,
I'm saying-
you'll work out your stuff.
I'm oversimplifying it, right? Like warrior, so melee,
But hey.
range, or like wizard or ranged, or like archer.
Anyway, yeah, Austin, that is absolutely something that could happen, that you could just totally get wasted. But that would be something that would happen to your character. It's okay to die. And honestly, later into the night, you guys might figure out some ways to like resurrect on your own, even without like getting donations. But I just wouldn't count on it. Anyway, so that's
If you do die, I will happily animate your corpse.
With rope.
Yep. Literal meat puppet. So that is essentially a crash course of D&D 5e and how to use the Roll20 interface. If you have any more questions, you guys know how to contact me by now. I hope this helped.
All right.
Alright.
Do you want me to